So my name is Toni Fowler, and I use she and they pronouns. I'm a cosmic hair practitioner. I'm a youth intervention worker, and I think I'm pretty cute.
My name is Kathleen Charles. I like for people to call me Kat. My pronouns are she, they. I'm of Haitian descent, and I was born in the United States, and I grew up mostly my adolescence in Montreal. I'm a creative arts therapist in training.
We invited healers to talk about Black mental health.
My name is Fimo Mitchell. I'm a writer, a podcast host, and a meditation guide. And my pronouns are he and him.
My name is Kay. For my pronouns, I don't have a preference. The reason why I realize is that through Haitian Creole, we don't use pronouns. Tout moun c'est moun. So you say femme, you say garçon, but when we speak, we don't have specific pronouns. So to honor that from our ancestors, I don't have a preference. And I am a mom. I am a life partner. I am a mambo, so initiated in Haitian Vodun. And I am an entrepreneur. I am in school. I'm an artist. So trying to live to the fullest of the calling.
I was away for so long. I was away for like 16 years in China. And so to come back, it's so many things that I realized, wow. I think it's that knowing that we have when we look at each other, that understanding like, hey. And you know, we often talk so much about the trauma and the, you know, but there's so much joy as well. And that, like those little things, like, you know, we both see something, you know, we hear that song, you know, there's a shared, it doesn't matter where in the diaspora you're from, there's a sort of understanding, you know, there's a sort of knowing, there's a lived experience that it might not be identical, but enough to be like, I see you, I see you, you know, and that I think is what I enjoy most about being Black.
My favorite thing about being a Black person is, I think about like my spiritual like hygiene and a relationship to like this earth. So I would say the diversity about being Black, and like I just can't think of one thing. It's just like the experience is so diverse and layered, textured.
There's so much.
Name them.
The style, the creativity, the way sun feels on my skin. I don't have to be running from sunlight. Wear your sunscreen though. But just the humor, the culture, the way so many like little ways that we speak and little cultural norms that we have kind of been kept and have manifested into Black culture here in North America, and like Black Twitter and the hilarity of Black Twitter. I love our style. I love our smells, our textures, our food. I love everything about being Black. Oh my God.
It is a journey of reconnecting with self, I find, right? Because there are so many narratives around who we are supposed to be, what we are, right? So it's really coming to say, well, where is my humanity? Where does it lie? And what do I want it to look like? So there is such a space for reinvention of self that I find enriching now, but was extremely heavy in the beginning when you don't quite know what you're doing or what you're fighting against, right? So, yeah.
When I think about healing, I think about joy. I think about pain, because sometimes we think a lot about the pain and the suffering and all this stuff, and like the roots, and then coming up and blooming from it. But I feel like I think about the process, and I think a lot about flowers and plants. That's how I've healed from like some really hard times, some really depressive like episodes, grief. I like to do meditation on like plants.
What comes to my mind is bringing all the pieces together, kind of what I was saying a little bit earlier on. It's saying, okay, well, do I have to be one or the other? Do I have to be Jezebel or Mammy? Can I care and live my sensuality as a woman? What does it mean to be a woman? Have that intersect? How does that intersect with my sexuality? How does that intersect with my body type, right? Because at least before my daughter, I was very cut and very muscular. Does that take away from my femininity, right? What is beautiful hair? What is beauty? So it's, once again, taking all of these different messages and trying to find where is me in that and what feels true, what's my true north. So I feel like that healing is taking all the banished parts of myself and bringing them back into the circle and hearing them and receiving them.
When I think about healing personally, I think about purpose. I feel like that's the reason why I'm here on this planet, is to like help people move through healing. I come from a long line of women who are very strong and who know how to hold space in community. And it's just what I do. And I feel like when I think of healing, I think of responsibility. Like it's not my responsibility to heal everyone, but my responsibility to provide a space so that people can recognize that it's their responsibility to heal, you know? So much work to do. Like, that's when I think of like mission, this goal, like why are you not in therapy? Like help me out. Yeah.
Healing is what we all need. To me, healing is freedom. You know, the more I heal, the more free I become. And my healing is not tied into a government or to a corporation, or, you know, my healing is up to me, and my healing happens on an individual level, but also within community. And so my healing journey is like a freedom walk, you know, and that's what it's not always easy, right? And healing doesn't happen in a linear fashion, you know. Sometimes you take a few steps forward and a few steps back, and you know. But I can't imagine living any other way, you know. So healing for me is very, very important.
I think it was like recognizing that I have a capacity to really feel and be in tune with people, and I just stopped running from that. And I started to allow myself to feel my own feelings more deeply and just go on my own journey and like of self-discovery, and like realizing that there were so many things that I was denying myself and so many ways that I wasn't taking care of myself, and just refusing to live at a level of just like moving through the motions and the fog and the mental fog. And like I reached a place where I was no longer okay with that. I was just like, I wanna live through Audre Lorde's erotic. Like I literally, like I there's a depth of feeling that I need and that I will no longer tolerate not having. And so I just feel like just going through depression and like anxiety and just being like, this is not okay, like for myself. And then doing the work, the hard work, you know, the shadow work in myself, and realizing, like coming to a place where I could understand, okay, this is what I need to do, these are my boundaries, and this is my responsibilities towards myself. And then coming into contact with people who don't do that. Like, I was like, so you just walk through life with just a stinky spirit. Your spirit stinks. And you're okay with that? And like not dragging anybody, you know, but like I just realized that if I can see that, instead of just dragging people in the street, they can pay me so that I can help them. And just realizing that it's part of like my mission in life also, to create space for that.
A short answer, astrology. A long answer, just listening to my inner ear, listening to my calling through music, through storytelling, listening to my parents. And I just noticed there are a lot of different cycles in my family, friendship, you know, relationships with friends. And I'm like, I wanted to like heal from it. I just wanted to be like, oh yeah, well, this is something that my mom dealt with, or this is something that my grandma dealt with. Started to get emotional. this is something that like has run in the family. Well, like me being born and me like stepping into my power and reclaiming like healing practices that were seen as like taboo or like demonic, building an altar. Altar is a space where you go to meditate, to be in deep meditation, to sit. Sometimes sitting includes, it's a space where people go to do different things, but how I use it is I sit, like I was saying, so you can sit with dead people, you could sit with spirit guides, you can sit with, depending on like what like senses you have, like there's these clairs, you have like clairsentient, clairgustant, all this like clear vision, clear seeing, clear knowing. And so when you go to your altar space and you sit in that space and there's a stillness that comes over you, I think everyone's different. But for me, like my great grandmother, who often like comes through the altar space, or even just, she's probably around right now. Yeah. She's very calm and very grounded, and she's always praying. And so when you sit, you're able to communicate with the spiritual world, with your emotional body, with all your chakras. It's a sacred place, and I do feel that we are our own altars. Like everyone is a walking altar, a walking prayer, but it is nice to kind of have a physical space, a portal that kind of breaks you from the routine of your life and allows you to be like anchored, but also like uplifted. Yeah, I'm big on that, grounding, but like uplifting at the same time.
While I was in China, I learned meditation. I learned the practice of meditation. And then in India, I got to really go deeper into it. And after some time, I was like, I started to practice myself. Like at first you're like, I don't know about this. I don't want to sit down for, it's not comfortable to sit with your legs crossed. But once I started to get into it, I was like, whoa, there's something here. And the more I got into it, then I started teaching teachers at my school how to meditate, because teachers are stressed out. So I was working with teachers, and then I started working with students after school. So imagine an after school program called like the meditation club. Some students thought it was a sleep club. I don't mind, fall asleep. And so from there, doing that in China, going to different schools, setting up like sort of mindfulness centers and stuff like that, a mindfulness program. And then I knew it was time to come home back in 2019. So when I came home, the first thing I did was, I said, I have to set up a meditation center here. And so in my little apartment, I worked out my living room, so there's cushions and there's space and people were coming. October 2019, that's when I opened up. And now with COVID, we've been doing it on Zoom. But it's incredible how there's people that are not even from Montreal, that I've never met in person, people from the US, Toronto, and we're all just gather, and we hold space for each other. It's a beautiful thing, and the sharing that happens, and the growth and the healing is beautiful, beautiful. So that's been my journey to it, and I think there's a lot of talk about holding space. I think it starts with holding space for yourself. And understanding that sometimes people that are guides, are teachers, they get in the way. And I know this as I was a teacher for 15 years. Your job, my job, is just to create the ambiance, just create the environment so that whoever comes into that feels comfortable. And that's the best compliment anyone could give me. Not, oh, your meditation was really good, I like what you said. No, that's secondary. Just, did you feel safe? Did you feel like you were heard? Did you feel seen? And make it as inclusive as possible. I think that's the number one thing. And sometimes I think we as in the wellness community, we might get caught up with other things instead of what really matters. And so holding space to me is something that I take very seriously. Because people are going through a lot. Everyone's fighting their own battles. So when they come into a wellness space, I hope they can finally exhale. Being a Black man in Quebec, growing up in the 80s, Like I'm born in 78, growing up in the 80s here. We had skinheads, I remember in 95, Parisot got on TV, he said he was drunk, but he basically blamed all of us for losing the referendum. Not just slides, like they act like all those years when they would have Saint Jean-Baptiste, right? Now they try to make it inclusive. They had little Haitian boys pushing remember some years ago? Pushing the cart, like the I mean, the level of racism. Students from HEC some years ago their Frosh Week, they were doing they put on like Rasta hats with the fake dreads, and they were like, smoke weed, man. Like, these are HEC students, bright students. You know, you wanna know what their punishment was? There was none. I mean, the level of racism in Quebec, I'm not saying the rest of Canada's not racist, you know, but the rest of Canada tries to like hide a little bit, which is not better. But Quebec, they're like rednecks with it. And then they deny it. So there's not rednecks, because they deny it. They act like they can't be racist because you know what? We lost the war to the British and we were victimized. And they were. But you know what? They also victimized the indigenous people of the land. So they don't get much sympathy from me. It's hard. That's a hard one. If they had more sympathy for the indigenous people here, like I grew up, I saw the Oka crisis. 1990, I'll never forget that summer. If they had dealt with that differently, maybe my opinion would have changed. If they had dealt with us, people of color, black people, differently, maybe, but no, it's a hard sell for me. So they try to do some PR, but they're not really doing much. Nothing's changed really to me. But all in all, to say, I got out of here, and it was nice to go somewhere where I didn't have to be in this like sea of whiteness, because it's a heavy tide, and it's just overwhelming at times. So I had to regroup. Sometimes you got to go away. There's no shame in running away. People are like, oh, were you running? Yes, I was. But sometimes you got to go away, build up. I had to develop myself, come back, and now I'm ready. Legault can say whatever he wants. I just sit there and laugh.
The word came to me, but I'm also too like, I'm thinking about it. But the first word I think is imposter syndrome. I know that probably we might not like think that, but when you want to access like healthcare for so many reasons, you might not do that. Even when you really need it, you might think that, well, you know, that's a rich thing. So you can think about that and like, oh, that's a rich people's thing, or I can't afford it, or it's often very expensive and like inaccessible for a lot of people. And that's why in my practice, like I do a lot of like decolonizing the spiritual practices, so you can start off like with nothing, because a lot of the times people before us didn't have anything, but they still had a practice, they still had a routine. You know, like using water as portals, like water, praying and stuff like that. But yeah, I think imposter syndrome, because you feel like you might not deserve the care, you might not have a therapist who reflects what you would want to see, or like parts of you that you feel like vulnerable enough sharing.
In their research, Aiden et al. Reported that 66% of the participants found the cost of mental health care expensive and unaffordable.
First of all, there's cultural incompetence of therapists. I had countless stories of Black people telling me that I had a therapist that, like, and I've lived a microaggression in session, and like, it makes me so mad, because I'm like, you don't understand the power that you have. This person is literally, it's not even like when you're a surgeon and somebody's bleeding, all you gotta do is, you know, stop the bleeding and hopefully fix the thing that started the bleeding in the first place. But when you're a therapist, there's no visible wound. This person is coming to like show you their soul and tell you that they're suffering and that they may or may not know whether they want to continue existing among us as another human. And you have the audacity to not educate yourself around like the other social things that are affecting their life. Like, it makes me so mad. And I'm just like, I've heard too many stories, and I feel like for me that's the biggest barrier that Black people face when it comes to therapy, especially here in Montreal, because Quebecers are a different type of white, you know, and it hit different, you know? So I just, like, that's a barrier. And then there's also like the the ignorance of like the financial barriers that a lot of immigrants and Black people face here in like just accessing therapy. Because you think that you're gonna meet one therapist and pay them $100, that is gonna be it. But no, you gotta go shopping. Create yourself a therapist, Amazon. Because it's all about the relationship. If you don't have a good relationship, like the relationship is part of the healing. Trauma happens in relationships, so healing also happens in relationships. So if your relationship with your therapist is not good, you're wasting your money. Hey, so make a budget to find a therapist where you have a good relationship. And so, and then there's also like in the Black community, we have been, I don't know who taught us this, but somebody somewhere down the generational pipeline told us that therapy is for white people. No, I understand, like, you're sitting in front of a colonizer and you're telling them about your deepest secrets, and like, we don't want to tell our business and stuff, and I get that. But like, what about, the healing women, the medicine women that we go see? Like, sometimes you go to them to get some basil leaves and like, have a spiritual bath, but that's not all you're going for. You be telling her your shit. You go and your confessions with your priest at your church, that's a therapy session. Like, what you think this is? And so I think it's kind of like dispelling that notion that like therapy in that institutional context doesn't really look like what we understand therapy to be. Like, we understand therapy to be more spiritual, and so when you get in a very sterilized context and you're sitting in a chair in front of somebody and you're just supposed to, that doesn't mean anything to us. And so those are the three barriers that I think.
In Aiden et al.'s research, 71% of the participants expressed that affordable mental health services would encourage them to seek mental health care.
I've been there because, like, for me, like, the kind of healing that I wanted was very communal, like, and I feel like that's what our nervous systems as Black people who like Afro-descendant folks, what our nervous systems understand is a kind of healing that is very holistic, and a kind of healing that understands that, okay, well, if capitalism is part of the problem, then let's deal with capitalism. Like, we come from cultures where if the environment is not good, then we also change the environment in addition to holding the individual responsible for their own like care. But I would say that you need to understand that therapists in this context in North America will not, like, the level of systemic healing that we are looking for is going to take a really long time. And so we have to find a way in ourselves to calm down the ancestors that want to fight the white therapist in front of you, and allow for, like, really make sure that you find a therapist that understands your systemic oppressions. Because I'm working with a white therapist, and when I tell you that first 2 sessions, I wanted to punch a bit, like, it was so hard. But she was honest in that she wasn't perfect, and she really truly wanted to get to know me and like care for me, and like she's made mistakes. Oh, you think you're gonna have a white therapist, she's not going to make mistakes. So I'm sorry, like, she's gonna make mistakes, but it's about finding somebody that's going to be able to make those mistakes and recognize them in themselves and be like, yeah, that was my bad. Like, having that humility, finding someone. It's gonna take some time. I wish I could say that, like, I want people to go into therapy, but I also want people to understand that it's about finding that good relationship. I know that people are hesitant, but like, I need people to understand, well, I would really love for people to understand that trauma, I'm gonna say it again, trauma happens in relationships. And so healing must happen in a reparative relationship. So you have to take time. It's gonna take a while before you find somebody that really like, don't believe therapists that are like, oh, like, we're just, no, like, I love the clients that I work with. You have to understand that this person has to love you, this person has to care for you, and also be professional enough to be able to like hold back. It's a very delicate dance, but there is love and care there, and it has to be genuine in order for healing to happen. So I just say to people, just be patient, but it is necessary. And it's the best kind of healing we can find in the broken system that we live in.
Diversity, we are so diverse. So I think it's important to think about all the options that we have, that like therapy or healing doesn't look one way. So if you're able to know like, wow, this exists, because you might try something and like someone says like, this is what therapy is, and it's a really bad experience. You could have another like Black healthcare professional. So you're like, okay, this is a Black person, this is a Black therapist, great. And then it's really not what it's just the vibe between you and the therapist. It's really not necessarily like healing the healing doesn't work. So I think like having diversity and knowing like different people are skilled with like different talents and practices.
I think a safe space is where there's enough trust to know that at times harm might happen and that we can discuss it afterwards. But trust is something you build up. So you're not going to arrive at it at first. So at first, when we first start, like When the Village Meditates, that's the name of Quand le Village Médite, that's the name of the nonprofit, right? At first, people are playing nice, hi, but after some time, people start revealing more, and that's when you get real, because at first everyone's fine, no one's going through anything, but once there's trust built up, someone might say, because another word that people use is, trigger warning. Well, listen, someone might say something that triggers you. Okay. You also know that person did not want to harm you. Two things can be true at the same time. You were triggered, but that person did not want to harm you. So you can talk about it. Hey, you said that was really triggering. But here's another thing about triggers. It's an opportunity. It's like an opening. Oh, it's a trigger. So get still, you don't have to close your eyes, but get still enough to go and investigate. Because that trigger means there's some healing that needs to happen there. A lot of times people use trigger as if they keep looking at the other person. It's not about the other person. It's not about the other person. It's your trigger. Now, the other person can be sensitive, but that's what the conversation's about. And that should be a pleasant conversation. And so safe space to me is just where all that can happen. Safe space is not a phony place where everyone plays nice and no one is ever real. No, safe space, someone might say something that might trigger you. And that could happen. No one ever says, trigger warning in my circles. No one ever says that.
I've learned not to say safe space because there's no facilitator that can guarantee you 100% safety, because the system that we live in also lives within us, and so everyone is capable of making mistakes that will make someone feel unsafe in any kind of way. But I can create a safer space. I can create a safe space, a safer space that is safer space than the world that we live in. The way that I try to create safer spaces is just by being honest about myself. Like if I'm working with a community of disabled folks, I'm going to be honest about like my intersections and where I come from and my intentions and like what I would love to offer to the space, but also make it easy and make it safe for people to come to me and tell me when I've made a mistake. Because like we sometimes, I feel like in creating safer spaces, like make the facilitator like an all-seeing angel that's never supposed to know. Like I'm just like you, but like I have skills that can make this safer than the outside world. But I also, in order to make it really safe, as safe as possible, I need you to be able to feel safe enough to hold me accountable when I'm not doing my job, or when I could be doing my job better. So that's how I try to do it, because I know I'm not perfect. I'm only 24. I got so much to learn. You know what I mean?
Really, I follow the lead of the person in front of me. This is what I bring to the table. Does that feel safe for you? How can we tweak it? This is what I do, because I am learning as I'm accompanying people. That's another principle I find that is really important in Vodou. It's like, yes, I am a mambo. Yes, that means I have a certain expertise on whatever points it is, but I am not above you. If I need support, I know who to call to come and help me help you, right? I do not have the monopoly on what healing is, right? You are the expert on your life. You are the expert on your body. You are actually the expert on your spirit. I work with spirit, so I could maybe see certain things, but I have to still ask you to confirm, is what I'm seeing correct? Does that resonate with you? Does that make sense for you? How does that work? Me, when spirit moves through me, this is what happens. Can you think of a similar way that happens for you? And you take me to your safe space. And then if we need to declutter it, we do it together.